Hi, everyone. It's Ram Dass here and now, this podcast. I'm Raghu, and I'm going to join Ram Dass today, and we're going to take some questions, basically from this course that we did. I was just telling Ram Dass the enormous response that we have gotten from people who have taken this course. Was called the Solstice Meditation Renewal, and it started around the solstice and just ending. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the questions Ram Dass is going to respond to. But before I do that, I just want to we want to send some appreciation, Ram Dass, to 1440 Multiversity. It's that who's been helping and being a partner to us for the Be Here Now network. And there's a couple of people that I think you'll appreciate who are going to be doing retreat weekends there in the future, this fall, 2018. And one of them is the man that you turned me on to, Dr. Eben Alexander. Remember, you took Proof of Heaven. You turned me on to that book. I did a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was tremendous. So he's going to be doing something there with his partner. And guess who's doing a wonderful thing there that you would not more highly recommend than, is that the phrase? You would really recommend Frank Ostaseski. Frank's doing a thing over at 1440 this fall. So that's just a couple of the people. Yeah, a couple of the people that they host in this beautiful place near Santa Cruz. So I just wanted to mention them. And so one of the most basic questions is not really a question about the course. It's more a question of people want to know, how are you? How are you? Because we don't get a chance to see you very often, except maybe on this, when we do one of these podcasts together, our Sunday podcast. And people just want to know how you, I mean, you look fabulous, and people want to know how you're feeling and how you're getting along.
Well, my body is 87, and it's pains and aches and all the whole thing going. And I don't identify with my body. And I'm inside, and I'm infinite, and I'm a soul. I'm a soul. And I watch the whole drama of my body and my personality and all that stuff. I'm my ego. And so I'm pretty good.
Great. You know, I have a question, actually. And that is, you know how when we've done these retreats in Maui with Krishna Das, he inevitably brings up how we all are dealing on a day-to-day basis with what he calls the movie of me. We wake up in the morning, and that big fat me, that I, that we relate to as thinking that's who we are. Now, and you know, as you just said, you are a soul that is watching your incarnation from that perspective, body, all of the aches and pains, and then you mentioned personality, which I haven't actually heard you mention before. Take me through, because I mean, this, you know, I've been with you for decades and decades, and I met Maharaj-ji through you, went to India with you the second time you went back. All this time, yet I wake up in the morning, and there's that instant Me. Oh God, I must have slept wrong in the bed or something, but my back is like killing me. Oh, Jesus, what am I going to do about that? Got to go to the bathroom. Maybe I want a cup of chai. Actually, that ought to make me feel better. Okay. This is still going on. Okay. At some point, I will catch it and go, okay, self involved, are you? So run me through. You get up, talk about getting up with aches and pains. You wake up, then what? How do you catch that? Okay. That instant thing, which is our humanness.
I have them, and I witness them. The witness comes in automatically.
Automatically. That's
Automatically.
big.
Well, let me think about it for a moment.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. That's the witness, which is part of the soul. I identify with that rather than all of the drama
Hmm.
of self-reference.
Hmm. Right.
So go back immediately. Just go back in your consciousness. Go back to the witness. Go back to the witness. Go back to the witness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when you find there may be a longer gap between being lost as you come into consciousness from dream world, from sleep state, and it may be a little bit
Yeah.
not so automatic with most people. I just thinking to myself, one good thing is not to have recriminations. I am a loser because I've just been lost. It's taken me all the way to the getting that chai ready before I
No,
realized.
that's all. That's all the drama. That's the drama. That it builds upon itself,
Yeah, yeah. But
and
certain,
and then you
yeah, no.
go the 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 witness.
Hmm. But I think one thing that our friend Sharon Salzberg has said that's probably very effective for everybody, which is just, it's okay. Just remember, you can return to, in this case, the
Yeah,
witness. You don't have to judge
yeah.
yourself. You don't have to pile
No,
on, right? So, yeah, very good, very good. Okay, got a question from someone named Jerry. Jerry Hall. She just said, what a wonderful opportunity to ask a question. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask Ram Dass, what is the source of his faith? I know he's experienced the unfathomable through his relationship with his guru, and I love hearing those stories. I have no comparable experiences and often fall short as a human being. What is it, Ram Dass, that sustains your belief in the divine?
Maharaj-ji, but but getting to Maharaj-ji, is in my consciousness, there's a little room, what is called?
Your imagination.
Imagination. Imagination. And I meet him right in that room. And then up here is he real or is he in my imagination? But I then most get that away from me, my mind, and I'm just going to live in that imagination room, and I don't have to know whether it's imagination or whether he's real. That's faith.
Now, okay, let's talk about when we say Maharaj-ji, of course, it immediately calls to mind our direct experience with that unconditional love.
Yeah.
And then, but I think that, I mean, of course, what does that really represent? What does that being truly represent beyond the body that we knew, beyond the interactions that we had? What are we talking about that doesn't require a a, a a direct experience with an individual named?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really a soul, and you're a soul, and there's soul interaction. I think you feel his presence, a presence. And he has knowledge of all. He's of knowledge of all things. And I used to consider myself as captain of the ship. But now I think of him as captain of the ship, of my ship. And when I problems and when I have times that bad times, I turn to him. I turn to him. And I find myself, first of all, talking to him and then relaxing from that he's going to fix the problem or fix my mind about the problem.
Yeah, I like that. Fix the mind about the problem. It's more like it, yeah. I'd like to let me give a little bit. I want to just comment a little bit about again back to what Maharaji is, which is through a couple of experiences. I think many people know this. Maybe some people don't. But when I went back to India with Ram Dass, after I had been there only a few days, Ram Dass actually wasn't there the first few days that I was there. And so one of those days I asked Maharaj-ji how to meditate, and he said, meditate like Christ. When he was nailed to the cross, he felt love, no pain. He was lost in love with every being. And this was all I wanted was a mantra, Ram Ram. I couldn't handle that, okay? I had no idea about Christ, never mind anything else. I went to India, I wanted to be with Hindu people, not Christ. So that was a phenomenon on its own. Next day, Ram Dass, you came. And I said, listen, you have a more convivial relationship with Maharaj. You can ask him stuff, I just got here. Can you ask him how Christ meditated? So it was me and Ram Dass and Rameshwar Das, Krishna Das, people you all know, have heard of, sitting around him, maybe one or two others. And when that question was asked by Ram Dass, he went in basically, and we had Christ darshan. I mean, for real. And he said again over and over, you don't understand Christ. He was lost in love with every sentient being. He never died. He never died. It was such an emotional, and he was crying. And in the tears were coming from his eyes. And in that moment, we had complete darshan of Christ, or I would say to you, divine presence. So there was no Neem Karoli Baba. There was no nothing. There was that thing which we call Maharaj-ji, but is in essence divine presence. And fast forward for me, maybe 10 years later, I was in Los Angeles, and I went to see Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa. It was just a couple of years before he passed, and he was doing a black hat ceremony, and we all would get in a line, and we would do the thing that the Tibetans do with put the silk scarf, kata, around. He would put it around the neck, and you'd have that instant, not more than a few seconds, 10, 15 seconds of darshan. Well, when I got about 6 feet or 8 feet away, I was at least up on the stage or whatever that he was sitting on. Suddenly, I thought, oh my God, Maharaj-ji. I had the same complete, spacious, non-dual, unconditional, the whole thing in that moment with His Holiness, the 16th Karmapa. And I have always remembered that. And it reminds me of when somebody asks this kind of question, it is that divine presence by which it is called different names. Neem Karoli Baba, 16th Karmapa, Anandamayi Ma was somebody else. Also, I had that experience with, and I know you did too, Ram Dass. So I feel like divine presence. And you know who else? Ibn Alexander, who we mentioned before. When this book, Proof of Heaven, is about him actually going he got very sick, and he died basically, and he was in a coma for a week, I believe. And he described coming out of it, he describes that same thing, which is, I went into a place of non-duality and ineffable light and unconditional love that was, I could not come back from that. It was so powerful, and he would call it divine presence. So I personally like that word, divine presence. And for you who have asked this question, Jerry, and Ram Dass and I are talking about what we know as that, which is Neem Karoli Baba, Maharaj-ji. Call it divine presence. However you might have experienced that in any which way. And the relating that Ram Dass is talking about, going through imagination, is the talking with him back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll go along with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right. Next question. This is a question, and I'm going to sort of paraphrase it. Somebody who he's been meditating for about 4 years. His name is Brett, and he's had trouble working with bad habits, drinking being the most essential one that he's been really trying to transcend. He's really trying to give it up, but seems to come back to it. And since being on the path, I try and let my life unfold without my judgment. When I meditate, I have complete peace, followed by, unfortunately, the urge to drink again. How do you know when your karma with such a thing is finishing? And why is it that meditation seems to actually bring out these, resurface the bad habit?
Wow.
That's a big one, eh? How to know when your karma is done with something. And the fact that meditation can reveal those dark places more.
The the meditation goes inward inward to your being, and there are things that are unconscious when you go to that depth of in your consciousness. And you'll have to deal with them because they have their karma, their result of past life or this past life. And treat your karma as the movie of you. The karma may be only this plane, and you have to go up to the soul plane to get to witness it and feel free of it. But I think that would be a thing to do. You're witnessing your drinking from your witness in your soul. And then it's just karma. It's just karma. And I think there'll be one moment you'll say, it's just thought. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. I'm going back to drinking. That's the thought. And one of those thoughts, you love them. Yeah.
And from that soul witness place, spiritual heart, there is no judgment.
No.
Right? There is no
the judgment's up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't stop meditating because it brings up deep subconscious stuff, right? I mean, we have to bear a lot of stuff in this life as humans.
Because if you witness, because if you meditate, you will automatically come to the witness.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so in my own experience, yes, karma does run its course at a certain point, and it's a matter of some patience and just sticking to it. Commitment is an important thing as well. Okay. Here's a couple of questions from different people, and I'm going to kind of join them together. It's from Carolyn and Craig. They're kind of different, but it's about you get on the path and you start doing practices, right? And you have all of the relationships you have with family members, with friends, with co-workers, and so on. And as you get a little bit more conscious on the path, some of the relationships which are very problematic, especially with family members who, in this case, have hurt this person, she's asking, do you release them with love and move towards others who you can have healthy relationships with? And is it okay to release and bless your loved one from a karmic point of view, especially if they're family? How do you deal with that?
Forgiveness.
Hmm.
Forgiveness and love them, and move your attention to your friends, it's not good to teach them what you have found. You don't teach them, but you will be with them. You're being with them. You're being love, compassion, wisdom, peace, and joy. That is all in you. And when you sit down and identify with your being, not your doing, your being, you will find all those things in you, and you will radiate those things. Radiate joy, radiate love. And then those who have been hard to relate to, you will mirror their souls, and they will be souls, even though they're not, they're egos, but in their souls, but don't teach them. Radiate.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's kind of like if you're sitting bedside with somebody who's very ill, dying, and they're not necessarily haven't been on the same wavelength that you have, and you've gone on the path and you have some realization, but the soul, you can speak to the soul. I have had personally that experience, and you just know that that person is receiving that love if you are truly radiating and not trying to do anything. And I think it's true for and this other person, by the way, Craig, talked in a similar way. He struggled, he has his friends who've all struggled with anxiety, as people do, and some depression. But since discovering spirituality, he says, I've had a huge shift in perspective. And that's another way for saying he has gotten more identified with soul, with spiritual heart. But the friends didn't find that necessarily and couldn't find their way. And the concern is being pulled back into old patterns and habits by being with them. And I think what you just said applies as well. Sitting in that place of that new identification and new perspective, and just being there and not thinking you've got to do anything, but just being in that place will affect them, even though, as you said, intellectually, they don't necessarily understand the idea of an identification with something other than ego mind. Huh?
Yeah.
And yeah.
You're pretty good at these.
Well, I have been studying at the feet of the master for how long now? How have we known? 50 years. I don't even want to mention it. It's like too crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, and this isn't intellectual stuff. I mean, Ram Dass, when you talk about a family member, that she talked about having, obviously has a family member that's very difficult. Ram Dass had a brother that was extraordinarily difficult for many, many, many years, right? And there's that famous story of you. I mean, this is really good. If anybody out there could do what Ram Dass did, but will it be bad to tell the story that Leonard, who was in the, shall we say, committed for a while, and you went to see him, and he said, Richard, I am Christ now. I just want you to know that, okay? Anybody else would have gone, are you out of your mind? Or, let me out of here. What did you say, Ram Dass?
Leonard, I am Christ too. And he said, You don't understand.
Yeah, right.
And I said, that's why you're in the hospital, because you you not you not you you don't allow the rest of us to be Christ.
Yeah, right. That's the thing right there and then, right? We're not allowing each other to be Christ is ultimately on this was a grosser level, but in the subtle level. By okay. We got time. Let me look. Yeah, we got time for a couple of more questions here. So here's one. First of all, thank you, Baba Ram Dass, for everything you have offered to all of us. We love you. This is Rosanna. My question has to do with action versus letting things go. How do you know when you should let something go and say, ah, so, which is one of your great stories, the ah, so story, right? And when it's your duty to take action, like Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita. How do we know when it's our duty, when it is our duty to make the lives of others better? So how do we know versus also letting it be? So action versus letting things go on.
I think that you your intuition, which is your intuition is God within you. The intuition will tell you. And if it's not right, it's not right. There's a time to act, and there is not a time to act. But your intuition will be. Or you can imagination, you can consult Maharaj-ji, and he will tell you. He will give some response to you that to act or not act. Yeah.
Mm. And I think, isn't it true, getting to that intuitive place in our center of our being is tantamount to the dialogue through imagination that one would have with Maharaj-ji, Divine Presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, question from Shelley. We got a couple more to go. Shelley says, there are those of us on the active path, spiritual path in this life, and those of us whose karma doesn't allow that yet. When we are interacting with these people and a dialogue gets going, say, for example, about the precarious state of the social political system, how much do we share? how can we, in other words, how can we have a dialogue? And this is with the polarization that's going on in this country right now because of the political realities that are here. This is a good question because I think it is a good thing for us to be interacting with people who don't necessarily are not necessarily on the path. They may not have the awareness, mindfulness factors going because of karma. So how do we interact with these people, and how do we share?
We share by being our soul.
Hmm.
And that's what you share, something, share. In the movie, you share your thoughts about politics. Like it's saying, sitting from your witness, she's having a political thought. Aha. But you get away from it to the witness. And you can interact with people about politics. Say your truth, and you radiate your love. Yeah.
And important to recognize that from that place, you are not judging, and that's probably the most difficult.
That's right.
With this kind of polarization. Very, very difficult, which means practice, practice, practice.
Practice.
Yeah. Practice, practice, practice. Last thing is actually from Lindsay, a mother of a 13-year-old daughter. So she's like, Mom has taken up the meditation course and chanting, and she has all these questions for me. So how and when does a parent who is early on this path help their child to find their way spiritually? She's very curious and also feels a little left out because many of her friends are religious, Christian, Hindu, whatever. And at her age, she'd like a North Star, so to speak. Any tips or resources specifically for teens who see their parents, obviously, on the path and taking up different practices and are curious? And I suppose, you're not proselytizing because obviously this 13-year-old child is interested. And there are many of them. Good question.
It is a good question.
Kind of important for us moving forward in this world that we're in right now. Yeah, I think I'm just thinking about it myself. It's hard, right? You don't want to be pushing because you usually get the opposite negative result. And on the other hand, you do want to give whatever it is that you're getting, especially with that curiosity. But
see your child as a soul and see yourself as a soul. The roles of child and mother you set aside and talk to this being as a soul. And forget the age. Age doesn't, and so forget the age and forget the role.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forget the age, forget the role. Perfect. Well, I think I mentioned this before we got on air, that one of the most, some of the largest feedback we got from the Solstice course was around the different mantras that were offered each week. And I thought that was particularly positive, because I think in many of these questions that you've been asked and people doing meditation, there's something about chanting and repetition of the name, which is so much part of our heritage from Maharaj-ji. And I think it's really efficacious in terms of turning your mind within into the spiritual heart soul plane in a very quick manner. I think it's, in all ways, it is something great to turn to when you do not have to be going into, I better go into my room and lock the door and meditate. You can do it in your car. You can do it at work to yourself. You can do it anywhere. And so I thought, Ram Dass, we used to do this thing in India. We'd all get together. We were living at the time, Maharaj-ji sent us up to do meditation up in a place called Kosani high in the foothills of the Himalayas. That one summer that we were there, and we used to do this practice on a regular basis of repetition of the mantra, not using melody. So I thought, shall we do a couple of minutes together? And everybody out there who's listening to this at any time, please do join us. Okay, it's the Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram, 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
Shri
Shri Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
Jai
Ram.
Ram.
Jai
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 Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Shri
Ram.
Ram.
Jai Jai Ram. Om. 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 Om.
By doing that mantra, you had taken, you swept into the one that the one the ocean of love, the one consciousness, the one, the one, the one that is behind all of the things, all of us. All of us. Ram, 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 Ram,
Thank you, Ram Dass. I thank you on behalf of everyone who's been part of the Solstice Meditation Renewal, Mindfulness and Meditation Renewal course. And every one of you out there who's listening, you'll have a chance, if you were not able to, or did not, for some reason, take the course, which is the part of the free courses that are offered through Love Serve Remember Foundation, ramdass.org. You will be able to, because we will obviously do this again, because it's, as we were saying before, practice does help to move you into the perspective of soul, which is entirely helpful on a day-to-day basis for all of this, and certainly in reference to all of these questions. So again, thank you. Thanks to Lakshman Chandler, who helped us out here. There he is. Who's done so much for us, for Ram Dass out there in Maui. And we will see you next time on Ram Dass Here and Now, and we can just say a namaste to everyone, and certainly namaste, Ram Dass.
Namaste. Namaste.
This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdass.org. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us. Please continue that support and donate at ramdass.org. We can then continue to share what Ram Dass has been sharing for all of these years. Thank you.